Hi, so my name is Taylor and I am currently 18 weeks pregnant with quadruplets. Bear with me while I get used to this filming myself kind of thing, but I think it's been about time that I come on and start sharing a bit more of our story and helping answer some questions that lots of people have. It's been so nice having people reach out and be so interested in our process of getting to where we are and how we're currently doing. So yeah, this will be a part one of, I'm sure, a very long series of getting to where we are now, but we definitely do need to go to the start to fully understand how we came about to being pregnant with quadruplets. So it goes back about 6 years ago when I was experiencing some symptoms being on the pill, and I wanted to trial going off it to see. And that's when I discovered that I had PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. I had a blood test and ultrasounds, and it confirmed that I was your stereotypical polycystic ovary girl. So I went to a naturopath and tried dealing with it as best as I possibly could that way, until I ended up at a specialist who said, "Do you want to have babies right now?" And I said, "Well, no, I was only 22 at the time." He said, "Well, you need to go back on the pill. When you're ready to have children, you need to come back and see me and we'll help you, because you won't be able to fall naturally with your circumstances." So back on the pill I went until about 3 years ago when Sean proposed. I went and see my doctor and said, "We will be getting married very soon, and we know that we want to start trying as soon as we're married. If not beforehand, can you please help me get my body ready for that?" With the information I had already known. So I went back off the pill and started that journey. It was a rough time trying to get my body to adjust, and it just didn't. So I went through a lot of time of really inconsistent periods, pretty much absence of periods. I didn't have one, but I had a lot of other side effects that come from PCOS, and it ended up seeing me back at a specialist because I was in quite a bit of pain. And that led me to, I think you call it a laparoscopy, or whatever it is. But I had one of those, and that determined that I had stage 4 endometriosis, and that had attached my left ovary to my bowel, which luckily was able to be separated, and I could go on about my day. But with that information, we were told, okay, you're definitely not going to be able to have children naturally. So we still had hope on our side and kind of just naively tried, which took us to February 2022. So I went back to a specialist, and this found me in a position where I really had to advocate for myself and make sure that I was being heard. So I was trialed on letrozole. And I think your stereotypical dosage of that is maybe 1 tablet for 5 days of the beginning of your cycle to help you to ovulate. And a doctor gave me that, and he said, "Don't bother booking another appointment. You'll be pregnant within a month." The month went by, and I most definitely was not pregnant. I've seen another specialist. That specialist had one look at all of my blood work and said, "Yeah, you're beyond us now. I need to send you to a fertility specialist." When we got to the fertility specialist, she told me about how severe my polycystic ovaries were and how the dosage that I was on for letrozole would have hardly been touching the sides. So we found that I wasn't ovulating at all, even with that amount of letrozole. So I was then put on triple the dose for double the time to help me ovulate. And with many blood tests, we finally found out that that dosage was suited for me, and it did make me ovulate, which was fantastic. And we began the journey of trying. So we followed all doctor's instructions. We tracked, we did everything. I had blood tests to catch my ovulation times so that we could try during those times. And we were on that dosage for about 12 months, and we didn't see anything happening for us in terms of babies. So the doctors got to the point where they said, "This is kind of the end of the line with letrozole. We don't want to continue you taking it. It kind of reaches a peak and then it plateaus. So the next bet would be IVF." With that being said, my doctor was extremely concerned for me to do IVF because of the severity of my PCOS, and they were really concerned that I would experience ovarian hyperstimulation. I was scared they would overstimulate me. So I was treated very cautiously and given a very low dose during my stimulation injections, but I still found that I was incredibly uncomfortable before my egg collection. Come around to the egg collection, which was done in February this year. I didn't go under, so I was lucky I had my husband to be in there with me, and they did the collection and amazingly got 30 eggs, which is just a crazy amount of eggs to collect during my first round of IVF, especially with the small dosage that I was put on. So the eggs were collected and they went in for their 5 days of growth to hopefully reach blastocyst. But during that 5 days, I got extremely sick and ended up with ovarian hyperstimulation and was admitted into hospital for about 3 to 4 days. I had some fluid build up in my abdomen and I had extremely large ovaries, very uncomfortable and just genuinely unwell. So our embryos were frozen and we did not do a transfer that month. At the end of the 5 days, we were left with 14 embryos, which was amazing. It did mean we lost over 50%, but in other stories that I've heard, we are incredibly grateful that we had those 14. The next month, we were going to try for a frozen embryo transfer. So I was getting blood tests to catch my ovulation. I continued on the letrozole so that I could ovulate to have an embryo transfer. But unfortunately, the weekend that I ovulated was a public holiday. So all pathology was closed. It was extremely hard to find anyone to do my blood tests, and we missed my ovulation day. And we're like, okay, all good. We're going to try again next month. And so we did. I continued with the letrozole. I was getting blood tests nearly between a week to 2 weeks. I had a really, really late ovulation, but they caught it. So as soon as you ovulate, 5 days after that, you go in for your embryo transfer, which is the craziest thing I think ever. It's such a big moment that with infertility and going through IVF and all these processes, you go for so long to get to this appointment that lasts for about 10 minutes. So we went in and they had picked embryo number 5. We don't know why. They just said it was a good looking embryo. And they put the ultrasound on my belly and implanted the embryo and then said, okay, off you go. Very weird. Like, you've got this very expensive embryo that you've worked so hard to get inside you and you're just told to go about your day. So very, very weird, but off we went. And all those IVF couples out there that are going through or been through it know the 2-week dread. So from that moment, you then have to wait 2 long, excruciating weeks to find out if it has been successful or not. So we waited and waited, and you get a blood test and then you get a phone call. And I asked that the phone call was left to a voicemail because I just didn't know which way it was going to go, and I wanted to make sure I was at home with Sean to hear it. We had given each other a really good pump-up chat before we listened to the voicemail to say, look, if this hasn't worked, it's okay. We can go back. We'll try again. We're not going to give up. We're going to keep pushing forward. So we listened to the voicemail and she said, congratulations. And our jaws just dropped. We were in absolute shock. We could not believe that it had worked. We couldn't believe it. She was really happy with our levels and that was it. We were pregnant. With how beautiful and exciting that news is, we were still really scared. So I think I was about 6 weeks at that time pregnant, and we just kept it to ourselves. We didn't tell a soul. We kind of just wanted to wait for our 8-week ultrasound just to make sure there was a baby in there, because sometimes you can get false pregnancies. We were too unsure to start sharing that yet. But when it got to about 7 weeks, Sean and I were like, no, look, if something happens at this 8-week ultrasound, we want to have the support of everyone, of our nearest and dearest. So we needed to tell them. That was a moment I had dreamt of for